In this video, I'll show you how to fish bread and hemp for some lovely roach. I'll just run you through my bait selection today. It's dead easy. To start with, I minced up 2 loaves of bread. You can pretty much use any bread to mince up. I'll just chuck it in the blender, cut all the crust off first, because you only want that white fluffy bit. The crust has got too much feed content in for roach, but skimmer fishing, leave it in. Roach fishing, I just take the crust off, blend it up, makes a nice fluffy base, very little food particles in there at all. It's really good for the roach fishing. Costs peanuts, you can buy it when it's on clearance, going out of date, it's dead easy. Top tip when you're blending that is if the bread is too doughy, if it's too fresh, put a couple of teaspoons or tablespoon of corn flour in, and it just acts a bit of a binder and just means you can blitz it that much finer. So from there I then just chuck it in a pinky riddle and then use that. I then got my hemp, cooked that all myself. A few top tips with this. Start with, I cook it all myself. So when I do it dry, I put it through a maggot riddle first, and what that does is it gets rid of all the big size hemp. You want this to be as consistent as possible so that when you're catapulting it, it's nice and accurate. So that's when it's dry. I then cook it up with a little bit of sugar in just to make it a little bit sweet and softer. After it's then cooked, I then put it back through a maggot riddle, and this time I'm getting rid of all of the smaller pieces. So that way you get a nice consistent size of hemp, just so when you're catapulting it out a set distance, it's all going in the same area. You don't get some dropping short, some long. So that's the top tip there. I always cook it so it's a little bit under, so there's only a few bits that are splitting. I just prefer that as opposed to having too many blown up, because otherwise you can't get the hook for it properly. So that's a good one. Nice, real cheap 2 baits these, but with that I always do bring some fresh casters and some maggots, just in case it's a bit hard. You always want a little bit of live bait, just in case you can't quite get them going on the bread or the hemp properly. It's always nice to have a backup, but not too important, mainly just the bread and hemp. Going down for hook bait for the bread. I always like to have my bread quite firm on the hook. I mean, you might be bumping fish or you're shipping your rig out. You don't want that bread to fall off. You want it to stay on the hook all the time. So I use a thick Warburton's Toasty bread slice. I'm using nice big punches. I'm going for the bigger roach, not the smaller roach. So I want it to be nice and big, nice and fluffy. To keep it on the hook, because straight out of the pack it can be a bit soft and it falls off a lot. What I do is I wrap it in cling film, like this. So this is a slice of bread, rolled out, cut the crusts off, so it's rolled out so it's dead thin. Then put it in cling film and then chuck it in the microwave for 10 seconds. And what that does is it steams the bread inside and makes it really rubbery. But with that rubberiness, it can still swell up. So you still get the same benefit of having normal bread, but it's just a lot more tougher and will stay on that hook a little bit longer, which means you can catch fish a lot quicker basically. So that's a good little tip. And then from there, I normally start on a 6mm punch. Today I've gone up to a 7 and I have used a 5, but I found the 5 just to be too small. But with that, I wouldn't be afraid to go in smaller with a smaller hook, or go bigger to a 10 or a 12mm with a bigger hook, an 18, 16 or a 14. When they're having it and they're there, you can get away with it. So really good thing to have a nice varied range of punches. This is only my small set, but I do have a bigger set as well. So with that, when you are punching, I always put them on a hook box. That way you can get a nice flat surface so that bread punch goes in properly and you're not messing around trying to dig the punch out or anything. So put on a nice flat surface, just makes it a lot easier to punch. So today we're fishing on the EDA water, that's Evesham and District Angling Association in Evesham. It's the main town stretch. You're probably quite aware of it, it's a very famous bit of water. £3 a day for a peg ticket, or you can pay £15 for a season ticket from the 2 tackle shops in Evesham. That's Manor Angling or the Bait Box. They do own another stretch of water just further up the road, which we did a short video on last week. Link is up here somewhere, where we talked about pole feeder fishing in a rising river to try and catch some skimmers. But today we're after the bread and hemp roach. So hemp floats, I normally always set up 2 to start off with. Elastic wise, same as the other rigs, that's another 4 to 6 slip through half a top kit. Same process, you just want to be able to swing them roach in nice and quick. When you are roach fishing, quite often the pike do feed as well. So by having a shorter piece of elastic in, it means you can swing them up easier because you haven't got as much elastic in, so it just makes it a lot quicker. Going down, still got the same mainline 012. I want it quite thick, just so I don't tangle the rig basically, as I'm laying my rig in quite a lot. So going over 12. I've then got a 0.4 gram alky census, which is a little pencil float, wire stem with a fibre tip again. A very sensitive tip this, which is really good for them roach bites. They are very delicate and hard to hit, so that fibre tip is just perfect. Going down, about half the depth of what I'll be fishing, I have a bulk, spread bulk of number 10 shot. So I think I've got 8 there, just spread out. And then going down, a foot apart, I've got some number 10 droppers. So I've got one there, one on my hook length loop, which goes down to a 0.8 bottom to a size 18 B511. A nice big hook for a single piece of hemp. You want pretty much the hemp to sit on the bend of the hook, so all the point is showing, which means you've got all that hook point to hook that roach's upper lip as you strike. The way I hook my hemp is pinning method. So I'll look for a nice big piece of hemp that's only just starting to split. Grab my baiting needle and just pop a tiny little hole where the hemp joins. What that means is I can then thread my hook through this hole and out through the side split of the hemp. Every so often they do split like that one just did. So it does take a little bit of time getting the right grain of hemp on the hook. But once you do get your grain of hook on the hemp, it will last for a good 5 to 10 fish. So it's definitely worth spending a few minutes on it. As it's dead neat presentation, the hook point is fully out of the hemp, but the hemp is on the bend of the hook, so there's plenty of hook hidden. So it's a really good way of hooking your hemp. So I'll quickly run you through my rig. Starting off at the elastic end, what I've got is a 4 to 6 slick elastic. It's a very soft yet very strong elastic. It will go forever. The only downside is that you don't want to have it too stretchy. So what I've done is I've only got half a top kit's worth of elastic, so that's where the elastic starts. There's about 1 metre of elastic in there, going down to some 12-pound power gum through the rest of the top kit. What that enables me to do is I can now use my puller kit if required, but it also adds a bit of extra tension in there and also a bit more stretchy in case there's any bigger fish in there. Likewise, the bottom 6 inches of my elastic, oh, it's quite stretchy, I've got doubled up, and that again aids for a little bit of extra strength. Just when you're swinging in them better fish, you just want to get them out of the water and be able to control them and not having them flopping around all over the place. Going down from that, I've got a little bead and a crow's foot onto my line. Main line is 012, all the way through to my hook link. I'm then starting on a 1.5 gram census Gwilliam float. It's a very delicate float. I call them a carrot float because the shape resembles a carrot. But the shape of this is just very sensitive, very delicate on the bites. It's a fibre bristle, so nice and delicate with a tiny little bit of wire in there. Quite a heavy float because you just want to inch that rig through nice and slow. But I've also set up a 0.8 gram version of this rig, just for letting it run through the rig, run through the peg and catching wary fish. Going down, I've then got my Olivet, which is about 2.5 foot from the hook link. It's an inline Olivet, which can slide for about 6 to 8 inches up the line with a number 10 above it to cap it off. What that means is it will bomb my rig straight down to about 2.5 foot off the deck. But as I'm trotting it through, as a roach pulls it, the Olivet can slide up and down on the line, which just aids bite detection because there's less resistance in that rig. Then got a small group of number 10 shot just to make up the rest of the rig, going down to 3 number 10 droppers, spread about 4 inches apart, to an 0.8 hook link, 6 inches length, with a size 18 B560. It's quite a strong beefy hook this, but it's on my positive rig, just in case there's any bonus fish, better roach, maybe the odd skimmer or chub. You never know at the start of the match, so I always use a nice bigger hook to start off with. On my lighter rig, it's the same setup with an 0.8 but to a size 18 B511, which is a much finer wire hook, just for the more delicate bites. So with that, I normally start on a 6mm punch of bread. And to hook that, I hook it straight through the middle, with all the hook points showing, so it's a nice visual bait. Fluffs up nice and big on this size 18 hook, but there's plenty of hook points that roach can hook itself against it. Plumbing up wise, I've plumbed up the swim. It's quite up and down, varies by about 8 to 10 inches throughout the swim. But my highest point, I'm probably about an inch over depth. With the lowest point, I'm about 4 to 6 inches off the bottom. But what you want to do with this bread is, if you have got a flat bottom, just fish it literally just off the bottom, because the idea of the bait dropper makes a big cloud in the water, and then roach aren't going to be feeding off the deck. They're going to be looking up or mid-water at your hook bait, so you just want to run it just off the bottom so they can see that nice visual bait. It's a very bright bait. River-wise, I can see the bottom of my keep net, which is in about 4 foot of water. So there's not quite a lot of colour in it. It's quite clear today. So those roach will be able to see that bait. And then throughout the session, I want to be shallowing up this rig up. The bread I'll probably be looking at to catch about a foot off the deck. Hemp I'll be looking at mid-water. So nice visual baits for this. Let's get the rig back in the water and catch another fish. So, shipping the rig out. What you want to do is flick it just upstream, just past your baited area, and then lower it down nice and slowly, keeping in contact with that float. Them roach sit mid to lower end of the water at the moment, so you want to be letting that bait fall naturally in that zone. You then need to keep a nice tight line to your float and try and just slow it down a little bit to the pace of the river, just to give them roach a little bit more time to see that bait and hopefully have a munch. So just had a little roach on the hemp. Nature of river fishing though is there's plenty of predators about, so somehow the hook managed to transfer into this beautiful pike's mouth. So I managed to get him out, but most of the time you hook a roach and the pike takes it, you don't get it out. But nice fine example of a pike, only a little jack, about 5-6 pound, but more than welcome on light gear. It's a good bit of fun. So I'll just slip him back. So, just feeding a few grains of hemp over the top of my float now. We've been having a few bites on the bread. Just landed a nice skimmer of about 1.5 pounds. Nice bonus to the day. When flicking the hemp over the top, you only need to be feeding about 5 to 8 grains per run through. What you're aiming to do is to just draw them roach from wherever they are in the river to higher layers and make a nice column of bait going through. The idea then is to run different depth rigs over the top of them to work out what depth them roach are sitting at and hopefully catch them quicker. Throughout the day, by more feed, you should draw the roach higher and higher in the water column before catching them nice and shallow, and that's where you'll have the bigger roach. Aim today is we catch them about 3 foot deep, as here I find is where you'll catch a bigger roach of hopefully around the pound mark. But at the moment, just early doors, so we've only just started feeding the hemp. So just introducing that through the catapult, it's really key to be as accurate as possible. So with that hemp, before I cook it, because I now cook my own hemp, before I cook it, I pass it through a maggot riddle and throw away all the big grains of hemp just to leave a consistently sized maggot riddle size of hemp. I'll then cook it at home, and as I bring it to the riverbank, I'll then riddle it again through my maggot riddle, and this time throw away anything that doesn't pass through the maggot riddle. Obviously when hemp cooks, it expands and splits open, which makes it pass mostly not through the riddle, and that way I'll have a consistent size of hemp, so when you're catapulting it out, it should land in a much more accurate feed space. So ideally you only want the feed space to be around about 1 or 2 foot wide, and that way you can really concentrate your water column of bait going through to draw them roach in, make them compete a lot more. Because the whole point of roach fishing is to get them roach competing, get their heads up in the water, off the bottom, and really get them active on that bait. So that's the key. It takes a few hours for the hemp to get going, like that. Whoa. I was very lucky. Won't do that on the film. Hope you enjoyed the video on how I fish bread and hemp. Had a nice day of fishing. Caught a few nice fish, nice roach, and a nice bonus skimmer as well. All in all, I had a great day. Bait wise, it only cost me about £2 for a bit of bread and a few hemp that I've cooked up myself. So nice cheap way of fishing, nice and clean, nice and easy. So I hope you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe to Chris's channel, where we'll be doing some more in the future.